So I've said it before and I'll say it again. I truly believe that the DJI Mini 2 is an absolutely fantastic drone for beginners. And today I just want to give you a walk around overview for beginners of the DJI Mini 2. So the information I'm sharing with you about the DJI Mini 2, much of that information is very similar or somewhat the same for other camera drones on the market today. So if you watch this video all the way through, especially the detailed version, you're probably going to get some good knowledge and information if you're a beginner on how drones are set up to work and operate. So the DJI Mini 2 has an estimated top speed of 36 miles an hour and a max flight time of about 31 minutes. Personally, the longest I've had my Mini 2 in the air has been 24 minutes. And sometimes in the middle of a flight, I may land and then take off again without changing out the battery. So that absolutely affects what I have recorded as my max flight time. And I've never ever allowed my drone to have to return to home on its own because the battery was dead. But I have stopped the return to home a few times and brought my drone back on my own. So the Mini 2 is classified to be able to withstand level 5 wind resistance. And what that essentially translates to is about 19 to 24 miles an hour. But it will give you warnings if it feels that there are wind gusts or things going on that might actually overpower your drone while it's in the air. I have seen those warnings before, but I do not know at what speed you start to receive those high wind warnings. If you know you're flying in windy conditions, make sure that you fly out into the wind so you can return with the wind, and you for the most part should always have enough battery power to return. And the Mini 2 of course uses OCUSYNC 2.0 for radio and video transmissions and has an estimated max range of about 6 miles. So essentially what that means for you is that you should be able to receive a very good signal back to your controller and your mobile device to be able to continue to control the DJI Mini 2 as well as be able to receive video back from the DJI Mini 2 with no issues. Now the other thing is the DJI Mini 2 is not water resistant. Just want to let you know that up front, something you want to be aware of. I would not suggest flying it out in the rain. Be very mindful if you're flying close to water. The sensors on the drone, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, can be confused when it's over reflective or moving surfaces, causing it not to be able to judge properly how close it is to the ground. So you want to, or to the water. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that. So now let's take a walk around the drone so I can tell you about each of the individual parts and where they're located at, and share with you a little bit of what each of those parts do. So on the top, what do you have? The DJI logo. Again, what do you expect? And of course you have your arms, and your arms will have to be folded out for you to be able to fly. And you'll want to fold out your front arms first and then the rear ones. I do at times forget that. So it is possible to fold out the rear arms before folding out the front ones. The front two arms actually house the antennas that send the OCUSYNC signal back to your mobile device and your controller. And then you have motors at the end of each arm. Each one of these motors either turn in a clockwise or a counterclockwise direction. Of the two motors you have in the front, one will be rotating clockwise, the other one will be rotating counterclockwise. And of course the motors actually spin the propellers, which provide lift to your drone, as well as help it to actually function and do the things that you want it to do. The clockwise and counterclockwise direction or rotation of the motors, the way it's positioned on the drone itself, that will actually allow you to maneuver. And your flight controller, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is what actually helps you to be able to maneuver the drone left, right, up, down, and rotate on an axis. On each motor, as we just said, you have two props. The props are individual, it's not one piece, so you'll have a screw holding each prop on. And like I said, the same way you have two motors that will rotate clockwise and two motors that will rotate counterclockwise, you also have two different sets of propellers. You have propellers that are set for the clockwise rotation and propellers that are set up for the counterclockwise rotation. And the purpose of that is to help with the drone's maneuverability, all which is controlled by the flight controller, which we'll talk about later. On the front of the drone, you have the gimbal and the camera. The gimbal is a 3-axis gimbal, which means it can stabilize the tilt, or up and down, the pan, left and right, and the roll, or horizontal leveling of the camera. And as you can imagine, because of the way the gimbal and camera are situated, there are some limitations, but the gimbal is what allows the camera to capture smooth and stable video, as well as level off the horizon for your photos. Now, the camera is what's called a CMOS camera that can capture 4K video with an aperture of 2.8 and can capture 12 megapixel photos. When it comes to capturing photo, the DJI Mini 2 will capture both JPEG and RAW of every image at the same time. The RAW format will allow you to be able to go in and edit the photo. The JPEG is what you're used to capturing if you're using a cell phone or any other device. And I suggest that you always set your drone up to do just that, because at some point, as you get it more into capturing video and capturing photo, you're going to want to be able to get or bring the most out of those photos. So you may decide you want to get an editing software. And if you do, you're going to want to have some of the photos that you've taken in the past. So always, always, always have it set to capture JPEG and RAW for your photos. So also at the very front here, you have the LED orientation indicator. The normal mode is a pulsing white. However, you can customize the color in the app, and there are many different states of this LED in relation to the way that it is actually transferring images and video back to your controller and your mobile device. I recommend that you go into the manual when you receive it and look through those states so you can get a better understanding of what that front LED is actually telling you. And then on the front, on the Mini 2, you have two vents that are actually functional vents that allow airflow to go into the drone and cool the battery as well as some of the electronics as is in the air flying. So on the back of your drone, you have, first of all, your battery door. And that door allows you to replace your intelligent flight battery. And below the battery door, you have a USB-C port, which allows you to charge your battery up while the battery is installed in the drone. And then you have your micro SD card slot. The micro SD card is not included with the drone. You can capture single photos and record a video of 720p without an SD card installed. It will just simply store all of your video and photo to your mobile device. But for the price of an SD card, I suggest that you always get an SD card and have it installed so you can get the most out of your drone. The largest SD card that the Mini 2 will accept is a 256 gig SD card. Down in the description, I'll have my links for the recommended SD card for the Mini 2, as well as a few other things. So make sure you check that out. And at the very bottom, you have the aircraft status LED, or a quick transfer button. So that light is also a button. The light will let you know what your drone is doing at a glance in flight, as well as any warnings. You'll want to see the manual for all the states that that light could be in, as well as the messages that your drone could be trying to communicate to you through the different states and colors of that light. On the bottom of the drone, you have your battery LED lights. When the drone is shut off, you can tap on the power button and it will tell you what the current battery charge level is of your installed battery. Not only that, but while your battery is being charged, if you're plugged into your USB-C, the light will flash to let you know that that battery is actually being charged. And then you have at the bottom here your downward vision system and infrared sensing system. The downward vision system is a single camera, and the infrared system has two infrared modules. The two work together to help the Mini 2 to hold its position when flown indoors or when there is no GPS connection available. So a couple of things in the Mini 2 that you don't see. There are a few components that make up the Mini 2, and I want to make sure that I share those with you. And many of these components are common no matter what drone it is that you're looking at. Some may be a little bit better or more effective than others, but essentially every camera drone out there, every good camera drone, basically has some of these components. They may even have a different name, but essentially they perform the same function. One of those components is the flight controller. And the flight controller adjusts the speed of the motors in different sequences to make your drone complete the movements that you command it to do using your controller. Let me know if you want to see a video on how this is actually accomplished, and I'll try to make sure that I create one for you. It also works with other electronic sensors and components on the drone to make adjustments to keep it stable in the air. Electronic speed controllers are sometimes separate, but also sometimes a part of the same system board that is the flight controller. I imagine that is true for the Mini 2, but it is something that might be separate on other drones. And the electronic speed controllers is used by the flight controller to regulate exactly how much power to send to each one of the motors, depending on a given situation. The receiver receives and transmits radio control, flight information, and video back to your controller and to your connected mobile device. Now, these last two may or may not be a part of your drone, but they are definitely a part of the Mini 2. And that is the GPS tracking system. And the GPS tracks satellites to allow your Mini 2 to hold its position, provides position on a map to your mobile device. It allows the drone to return to home if commanded without input from you. And it also provides information like distance from the takeoff point in the display on your mobile device. And the last component that I wanted to share with you that's in your Mini 2 that you won't see unless you disassemble it is the altitude sensor. And it uses the air pressure recorded at the time of takeoff and constantly measures that pressure in flight to determine what the Mini 2's current altitude is in relationship to the point of takeoff. It provides that information back to you as well as the flight controller to make any necessary adjustments. Now, I really wanted to share with you some thoughts about the battery, but the battery in itself is so detailed that I think that might require an additional video. So for now, I would just say that the DJI Mini 2 uses an intelligent flight battery, and that battery should give your drone an estimated 31 minutes of flight time. And that flight time could vary based on environmental conditions. So that's been a pretty much in-depth overview or walk around of the Mini 2. I hope this helped you in some way. If you're a beginner, I hope this helped you understand exactly how it works and give you a better idea or a level of comfort in how you can use your Mini 2 in order to have a ton of fun and capture some great video and photos. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comment section. I truly thank you for stopping by and staying till the end of the video. Have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you again very soon.